It was an ordinary afternoon in Robertsville, Missouri, a quiet town where people rarely expected anything out of the ordinary. The UPS driver, a man who had been on the job for over a decade, was going about his regular deliveries when something unusual caught his eye. As he approached the doorstep of a modest suburban home, he noticed a woman standing at the entrance, holding a package. Her expression was calm, almost too calm. Something about her demeanor felt off, but he couldn't quite put his finger on it. Then, as he reached out to take the parcel from her hands, he noticed it. A hastily scribbled note on the box that read, "Contact 911." For a split second, he hesitated. Was this some sort of prank? A misunderstanding? But the urgency of the moment told him otherwise. He glanced up at the woman, whose eyes were silently pleading for help. Standing just behind her, partially obscured by the doorway, was a tall man, her husband, James Jordan. The delivery driver didn't ask any questions. He nodded, took the package, and walked back to his truck. As soon as he got inside, he dialed 911 and relayed the situation to the authorities. What he didn't realize at that moment was that he had just saved 2 lives. Inside that house, 33-year-old James Jordan had turned his home into a prison for his wife and their 3-year-old son. What the police would soon uncover was a harrowing case of domestic abuse, one that had been going on for far too long. Jordan had locked his toddler inside a room for 15 long hours, denying him food and water. The child, terrified and helpless, had no idea when or if he would be let out. But as horrifying as that was, his mother's ordeal was even worse. Stripped of her phone and any means of communication, Jordan's wife had been completely cut off from the outside world. She had endured hours of physical violence, slapped, punched, and thrown to the floor repeatedly. But the abuse didn't stop there. According to reports from KMOV News, she was forced to strip naked and was sexually assaulted, all while her young son remained locked away, possibly able to hear every horrifying moment from behind the door. Whenever she tried to escape, Jordan would drag her back inside by her hair. He had a pistol, which he repeatedly pointed at her head, making it clear that any attempt to leave would be met with deadly consequences. Desperate and out of options, she knew she had only one chance: the UPS driver. When she saw the familiar brown uniform approach the house, she took a calculated risk. She had no way of knowing if the delivery man would even notice her message, let alone take it seriously, but she had no other choice. By some miracle, he did. The 911 call from the UPS driver set off a rapid police response. Franklin County Sheriff's deputies immediately dispatched officers to the scene, but given the level of danger, it wasn't just any response, it required a SWAT team. As officers arrived, they surrounded the house, ensuring that James Jordan had no escape. They knew he had a weapon, and they couldn't afford to take any risks. Through a loudspeaker, one officer issued a clear command. "James Jordan, this is the Franklin County Sheriff's Department. Exit the home with your hands in the air." Silence. Then, a chilling response from inside the house. "She's mine. You're not taking her." The SWAT team knew they had to act fast. Jordan was growing more erratic, and with his history of violence, every passing second increased the danger to his wife and child. Officers positioned snipers, ensuring they had a clear view through the home's windows. Others prepared to breach the front door if necessary. Inside, Jordan was pacing, his gun still in hand. His wife clutched their child, shielding him as much as possible. She could hear the police outside, but she didn't know if help would come in time. And then, the flashbangs were deployed. A loud bang exploded through the house, followed by blinding light. Disoriented and temporarily deafened, Jordan stumbled. That was all the police needed. Within seconds, the SWAT team stormed in. James Jordan barely had time to react before he was tackled to the ground and disarmed. Officers restrained him, making sure he had no chance to hurt anyone else. As he was dragged outside, still shouting threats, his wife and son were led safely into the arms of waiting medics. It was over. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, she was safe. James Jordan was immediately taken into custody and charged with domestic assault, felonious restraint, sodomy, unlawful use of a weapon, endangering the welfare of a child. His bond was set at $100,000, an amount that ensured he wouldn't be walking free anytime soon. Meanwhile, the UPS driver was hailed as a hero. We're grateful this UPS driver, with more than a decade of service, followed protocol when he saw a customer in distress and contacted authorities, said UPS in a public statement. Sergeant T.J. Wild from the Franklin County Sheriff's Department also praised the driver, saying, "He made a huge difference." But the true impact of his actions wasn't just about a phone call, it was about paying attention. Had he been too distracted, or had he ignored the note, thinking it was just a prank, this story could have ended in tragedy. Domestic violence victims often have few opportunities to seek help. Their abusers keep them isolated, ensuring they can't call for assistance. This is why they are forced to use creative, desperate measures, like slipping hidden messages to delivery drivers, store clerks, or even hairstylists. In recent years, there have been many similar cases where victims found clever ways to alert authorities. For example, in 2021, a woman in Florida was rescued after she ordered pizza online and wrote 911 hostage help in the special instructions box. In 2022, a child in Utah used a school Chromebook to send a Google Docs message to their teacher, revealing they were being held captive. These stories prove a critical truth. Sometimes, all it takes is one person paying attention. As James Jordan was dragged away in handcuffs, his wife and son were rushed into an ambulance. Shaking, bruised, and exhausted, she held her child close, whispering words of comfort. She still couldn't believe they were finally free. The paramedics checked her injuries, swollen bruises, cuts along her arms, and a fractured rib from one of the violent beatings Jordan had inflicted. The child, though physically unharmed, was severely dehydrated and malnourished after spending 15 hours locked in a room without food or water. The first responders reassured her, "You're safe now. He can't hurt you anymore." For a woman who had spent years trapped in an abusive cycle, those words were almost impossible to believe. Abusers create a world where escape feels impossible, where every cry for help seems futile. But today, against all odds, someone had listened. Once at the hospital, a domestic violence advocate was called in to speak with the woman. Many survivors, after escaping their abusers, struggle with what to do next. Some fear retaliation, others worry about where they will live, and many have been financially controlled by their abuser. The advocate helped her understand her legal rights and resources available to her. She was informed about shelters, restraining orders, and financial aid programs that could help her rebuild her life. The advocate also helped arrange therapy for both her and her son, knowing that the psychological scars from years of abuse wouldn't disappear overnight. "You don't have to go through this alone," the advocate assured her. "We will help you every step of the way." And for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to believe it. Escaping an abuser is only the first step. Many survivors deal with intense psychological trauma even after they're free. Experts say domestic violence survivors often suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, flashbacks, nightmares, and anxiety triggered by memories of the abuse. Depression and self-blame. Many victims blame themselves for staying as long as they did. Trust issues. Even in safe environments, survivors often struggle to trust others again. For children who witness domestic violence, the effects can be just as devastating. Studies show they are more likely to struggle with emotional regulation, fear, anxiety, and anger issues, experience difficulty in school, trouble focusing, and lower academic performance. Develop unhealthy relationship patterns, either becoming abusive themselves or tolerating abuse in future relationships. Jordan's 3-year-old son had no words yet to describe what he had lived through, but experts knew that without proper care, his trauma could follow him for life. This is why therapy, a stable home, and a strong support system were so crucial. James Jordan was formally charged with domestic assault, felonious restraint, sodomy, unlawful use of a weapon, endangering the welfare of a child. Prosecutors pushed for the maximum sentence, arguing that Jordan's crimes were calculated, cruel, and extended over a long period. At his first court hearing, he showed no remorse. Instead, he attempted to blame his wife, claiming she was exaggerating and that he had just lost his temper. But the evidence was undeniable. The bruises, broken ribs, and forensic evidence from the assault. The recorded 911 call and police body cam footage. Statements from neighbors who had heard the abuse in the past but were too afraid to intervene. It was clear to everyone in the courtroom, Jordan was a dangerous man. The judge denied bail, ensuring he would remain behind bars while awaiting trial. As news of the case spread, the UPS driver was recognized as a hero. Major news outlets picked up the story, praising his quick thinking and attentiveness. UPS released an official statement. "We are incredibly proud of our driver, who recognized a life-or-death situation and took action. His alertness and courage saved 2 lives." Social media erupted with messages of support. This man deserves a medal. It's a reminder to all of us. Pay attention. You could save a life. To the UPS driver, you're a hero, and we're grateful for you. Despite the attention, the driver remained humble. He simply said, "I was just doing my job. I'm just glad I was paying attention." But that's the thing. So many people don't pay attention. That's why domestic violence continues in silence, unnoticed by neighbors, friends, and even family members.